Go ahead and get our meeting started. Welcome. Thank you guys for your patience. And I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Whitehurst for our invocation and pledge.
Dear Lord, we give you thanks for this day and this opportunity to be here in a free country where we, the citizens, can rule the direction that we want to go in. And we just ask that we go in your direction. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom and all the things that we do, that what we do would uplift your name and that you'd always be present in our meetings and that your wisdom would be our wishes. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Whitehurst. All right, well, we're going to start off, I guess, with item number 2A, the prison ministry log number 101.
Yeah, we got Chaplain Moss here. He is our prison ministry chaplain. He has asked for a few minutes in council tonight to talk about the events that's taking place and the progress that's being made at Stockade. Mr. Moss.
Thank y'all for having us. We got 2 people from area local churches who'd like to give about 2 or 3 minutes of testimony if they would. And I sew it up, and we'll be through in about 15 minutes if that's all right.
I'd just like to say my name's Mary T. Anthony. I go by Bo Anthony. And I would just like to say that I've been involved with the prison ministry for about 15, maybe 18 years. I didn't write it down when I got started. But it'd be a shame to lose that church. They're just inside the stockade. I don't know what the county council is thinking about doing with it. But it has made a huge impact on different men's lives. I mean, a lot of people call it jailhouse religion, but I personally have ran into numerous people out in the public that have changed their lives and came up and thanked me for the ministry, what it meant to them, alcohol, drug abuse, and they turned their lives around. And I even had one that I was telling Preacher Moss about it. There's a guy that came through going to Atlanta to another incarceration down there. And he said when he pulled up and he saw that church sitting inside the yard, he called it, he said, I knew I was going to be changed. And that guy, he had tattoos all over him and everything. He was going to do some hard time for drugs. But he turned his life around. And I don't know whatever happened to him. I lost contact with him. But he got saved here at that church. And I think it made a huge impact on his life. And I've seen it make a huge impact on a lot of other men's lives. And it'd just be a shame to lose what that church stands for and what it represents. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Tyler Smith. I've been involved with the prison ministry for about 4 or 5 months now, so significantly a short amount of time than Brother Bo right here. But in that 5 months, I've seen several men saved, and I've seen how the Lord has used that facility and that ministry to change their lives. And I believe if we're all honest, I think we could all say that that would definitely not hurt anybody. Definitely wouldn't hurt anybody. And my main concern, and like Brother Bo said, I'm not quite sure the plans involved, but my concern would be if that facility was not moved, that church house was not moved, and church was had inside of the detention center over there, it would be easier to phase that part out. And that would be my main concern, is if we lost that building over there, it would be easy to phase that entire prison ministry and that rehabilitation for those inmates. It would be easier to phase that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Patterson. I go to Missionary Baptist Church up here in Pickens. And just a couple of things. I've been involved with this ministry about 2 years, and God's really used that ministry, really has. And I'm really thankful and glad that God allowed me to be part of that. And I preach out there a couple Sundays, 2 Sundays a month. Just depends on how often I'm asked to do so. And just to walk into that building and to see it just a church building, that means a lot, especially to us that go in and do that ministry. Just to have a church building to perform in, and not to perform in, but to worship the Lord in. That means a lot. It really does. And I get up there and get to preach from that pulpit, and there ain't nothing like preaching. I'm telling you, ain't nothing like it. Ain't nothing like doing something for Jesus. And it would be it'd kind of be a downhearting thing for us to lose that inside the new facility. And I would love to be able to get that church building moved and put in place up there at the new detention facility and at the prison up there. And that way we can continue what we do. Again, like these other men have said, there's been men that God's changed their lives up there. And partially it is to do when they show up in handcuffs from the sheriff's office or wherever they are sentenced from in whatever city in this county. And when they show up and they see that building and they see that steeple and they see that cross on top, they know deep down inside of them that there's an opportunity there for God to change them, because handcuffs ain't going to change a man. And even detention is not going to change a man. It takes Jesus Christ to change a man. And if there's a facility and there's a place for us that minister up there to go to on a regular basis and to minister to these men, it would be a blessing. And see, that's not even counting the ladies that are at the sheriff's office. They don't get to be a part of that. And so it would open a door for them as well to be able to walk into a church building and to sit down in a pew and to hear a preacher preach, and also to sing praises to the God of heaven, our Creator. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that it would be a shame for us to lose that, and to see and like Brother Tyler said, it'd be easy to phase us out. It'd be easy to say, well, the sheriff's officer would say eventually down the road, as liberal as this nation is getting, it would be easy to say, well, they're just in the way. We can just stop this now. It's, the people may say it's not doing any good, but I beg to differ. I've seen people get saved out there. I've seen people's lives get changed out there, and it was a blessing. Even Sunday at our service, a man that got saved about 3 or 4 weeks ago gave an awesome testimony. And one of the key things he said, and squalling his eyes out, I'm talking about a prisoner, somebody that was in prison. And what he said was, Sunday, he said, I know that I'm not going to hell. And that's the most important decision a man will make on this earth, is to know that you're not going to hell. And you can only get that through Jesus Christ. And it's a blessing to be able for us to be able to go out there inside of a building and present the gospel to people. And I ask to you all to consider the fact of moving that building and letting us continue that at the new detention center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm with these fellas, and my goal is to move it also if it's any way possible. And I want you to know that lives are being changed out there. Just last night, night before last, we baptized 8. And it's even working with the LEC. Out of 20 LEC that's over there, 9 have professing Christ since they got there. So things are working. But it's just a matter about the building. And I can understand, that it costs us, but we're saving money, but we're losing souls. Well, let's weigh it out. And I like to call them inmates. And the word doesn't say who they is, that's what they're looking for. You break that acronym down. I need mature, anointed, trustworthy examples. Somebody to follow. And they're getting that in there. And when they're getting out, they're becoming productive citizens of our society. They're not going to Columbia, they stand right in our community. Love is in love until you give it away. And as you give the word, you got to give love with it. And I could see how we're shipping those state boys back down the road. One of them came here that couldn't speak a word of English. Now he's fixing to take his GED test in English and Spanish. Don't hear about that, but it's going on. We got some that's getting their associates and their BA degree in theology. It's going to come to them quick just because of this. And I understand change can be good. Change can be good, but I think that if we can move that chapel, it'll be a great move in the right direction for us. What profit the man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And before I take my seat, I want to read what Isaiah 97 said. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. Unto us a child is born. His name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. That's what we're trying to promote. We just need your help. Amen.
Amen.
God bless your heart and all the rest of your part. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, what questions do you guys have in talking about this possibility? I mean, I have some thoughts, but I wanted to hear y'all's too.
That building they won't move, was it not at the old stockade originally?
There's an old chapel that was there originally. I think this one here's the one that, if I'm not mistaken, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is one that was built by volunteers. The county didn't pay for it right now. This is all volunteer work.
You're correct. The inmates, they'll build a lot of it. They even painted a big mural in the back of it. You didn't go up there and look at it. It'd be worth your trip to go in there and just ride by it and go inside. Go inside the church. I said, you open it up, the inmates painted that mural that's on the back. It's got a big thing of Jesus. It's got water running down and everything. And as I said, they helped build that church. It's nice.
How many prison chaplains do we have now?
At Stockton, we've got one, right? So we got some assistant chaplain. He's our head chaplain.
We have 3?
I guess my question is there an estimated cost of moving it? And that's not really where my fear is. 30 years ago, we lived in a different world. Common sense ruled. I mean, we didn't have to worry about a lawyer from the ALCU suing Pickens County. But my question is this. If we spend a large amount of money to move the chapel, set it back up, how long is it going to be before we have to put a mosque on that side out there? Or a Buddhist temple? I have nothing against other religions, but that's not my religion, and a lot of those are in direct conflict with Christianity. I don't want Pickens County to have to build a mosque or any other kind of building out there. But my question is, and I guess it's for the attorney, I heard one time $100,000, is that right, or is that too high?
We've actually had Mike has been researching, put Mike on this project a few months back. He's having trouble getting an exact estimate. You want to where you are?
Yeah, I've contacted 2 movers. One was out of, the one that talked to me the most was out of Georgia, Cox Moving. He moved a white church similar to the one that we're talking about on the same property. What I mean, it moved about a football field. They was building a new church, but they wanted to keep the old church. First property, he didn't say, but I assume fellowship building or something. He said it cost $18,000 just to move it to 100 yards. That was just in utility bills. He said we had to move 3 power lines. So he said every time you go under a power line, that's the money that the mover, not he has to pay, that Pickens County would have to pay. So I told him the distance and the roads on the thing, and he just started laughing. He said, you know how many power lines you're going to be going under? And that's how we say it to him.
Well, I guess
send me the pictures.
My question to you, am I seeing a booger there that doesn't exist?
Well, it's a real concern in the sense that the facility we have now, where we operate the prison now, is going to be a very different facility than what we're going to operate. It's going to have a lot more people through it. It's going to have a different type of prisoner and a significantly larger number. And so where we've had this in the past has been a little bit of a, I would suggest, a bygone era, as you referenced. My concern would be that someone could make an equal protection argument, someone could make a freedom of religion argument, someone could make a institutionalization of religion, a First Amendment argument, and that we might, because of the high profile of this new facility, that might be something we would face. I could give some examples of that, and I could go into more detail about that, but I really wouldn't want to do that in a public situation. I would certainly welcome the opportunity if y'all ever felt it necessary going forward to give you more information in executive session. But there is that concern. Now, there is that concern now. You know, we have that facility now. So it's important for you to consider it, but I think it's also important for you to consider maybe some information from the sheriff as well.
But I agree with you, what you're saying. And that's my only fear.
I know of a state institution, I don't want to name the school, that has a chapel on it. And if I'm not mistaken, they allow different denominational meetings in that chapel. State supported, it's state funds, and it's allowable there.
That's really an important point to bring up. It's the state, you know, we have freedom from the institution of a religion in terms of it being imposed on us. But what we don't have is a prohibition of religious practice. So what I'm saying there is the First Amendment doesn't prohibit you or me from expressing our religion. As a matter of fact, it's supposed to do the opposite. It's supposed to allow us the freedom to express our religion. It's supposed to allow this man the opportunity to express their religion. So whatever place we provide, whatever religious group wanted to take advantage of that space, we would have to allow them to do it. So if you've got a chapel that's provided and you're comfortable with it being used by a practicing Buddhist or a practicing Muslim or a practicing Wiccan, you know, these are some of the examples that have come out in recent cases, then that's good. That's what the law would require us to do. So if we provide a place, we need to be content neutral as to what goes on in that place. But it's a good point you bring up.
Because I know of like certain facilities, schools and stuff, like what you say, if you allow one, you have to allow the other if they choose. So
that's right.
Well, you know, we have a U.S. Senate chaplain who says a prayer before every Senate session. We have a chaplain in the State House who says a prayer before sessions.
There's a chapel
You just said one moment ago.
Rotunda.
That's right. And we do one of those. And we're not required to go do one from every single religion that's out there. I think this is something that's paramount to who we are as Pickens County.
Here's something I want to interject, if you don't mind. As a youth pastor and as an associate pastor, you guys are absolutely doing God's work, and I cannot applaud you more. My pastor has volunteered at times to work at the prison ministry, and he's told me great stories of that. While I understand the significance of the building does not make a church. And I've witnessed kids, teenagers who come from horrible situations, horrible families, and they're not getting saved in church. They're getting saved because of the relationship that they develop with the pastor, with the youth pastor, and with the conversations that you have about their relationship they can have with Jesus Christ. So I would argue the point that it's not the building, it's not the location that matters. It's what you do and what you do and what you do and what you do as you lead people to Christ. You can be saved sitting in a seat right here just by me talking. It's between you and God. I can't make it happen, and these walls can't make it happen. We can't call this a church and all of a sudden it'd be a place for people to get saved. So I guess my question to the sheriff then is, how do we make the use of the facility that we have to where that opportunity isn't taken away? I think it's your point there, that we don't want to lose this opportunity to minister to these men, because it may be something as simple as seeing a church. It may be something as simple as seeing a Bible verse. It may be as simple as seeing something as saying, God we trust, on the walls. I don't know what that is, but what opportunity do we have there?
Let me kind of leave some fears, especially with that you came up with. This is a bigger thing than just us. And I say that not in a political sense or anything, but what I've been working on since the day that I came in, I drive them crazy with all the time, is our mental health, behavioral health, and the third leg of that stool is religion to me. Because I've been in church since my grandma made me go. So, and that's what I need for the mental health, behavioral health to succeed. I see the religion part as a turbo boost of what we're trying to do. And in fact, I'm going to Washington next week to speak just on that subject. But that's where we're coming from. Y'all are always going to be there. The church, if it's not moved, is still going to be there. I went with Councilman / Chaplain Moss this while ago, and we walked through the thing, and we think we have a lot of opportunities. One thing I designed in there, didn't say much because I didn't know about building a jail, but each pod is going to have rooms right off of it. In fact, there's 2 on a lot of them. And that's for that 1-to-1, 1-to-3, or whatever relationship that's built there. But also we have a room that's 20 by 40, probably bigger than this, of where we think we can have services for that. But when we do that, though, security of that facility is number one. But we think with our sentence, who have a little bit better security clearance, if I use that term, we can go there. But we can use other ways to get to our unsentenced people. So when I got to thinking, is just what you took. I had a great speech.
Sorry.
But I got to thinking about Jesus and his apostles as they go out. He preached on mountaintops. He preached Beatitudes out there. We had Paul in prison. I've become infatuated with Paul, with what he did, where he was at. And maybe we got enough of Paul in us to make this thing succeed at our detention center. Maybe we have enough of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the others of where we can make this some of the best in the state. Because what Joe and I were talking about was turning people out of this prison or out of this jail who were productive, going to work at asphalt place or whatever. But we're trying to change lives, which has never been really done here out of the jail in Pickens County. And so, but y'all are crucial to what we're trying to do. I need y'all in that jail, and I need y'all on a regular basis, because I think what y'all are doing is exactly what we're doing, and we just haven't not got close enough to do. The church out there is great, but you hit it right on the head. We're ready to move forward and save some lives and give people what we call our recidivism rate. We want to look back in a year of stats after we're doing it and look at our recidivism rates have gone down of where we're getting people out of the jail, but more importantly, we're changing lives, we're changing souls, and maybe when they're out there, they got a good job and they're not coming back. We do want them to come back as part of our ministry team. So that's where we're coming from. Kind of alleviate what you said. There's a whole change in what we're trying to do as a sheriff's office, and our chaplains that we have for our uniformed deputies are tremendous, especially when they bring us a lot of cookies. And so those are the type of things that we're trying to do. We see y'all as an ongoing partner. I've got that guy right there who y'all trust and know for years now of what he can do and what we can continue to do together. So I'm asking you, it's not my decision on the building, but I'm asking y'all to be partners with us, and let's go ahead and make this the best ministry that we have in South Carolina. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, one thing, and I hear the concern about the having the physical chapel in place makes you feel comfortable that it won't get yanked out from under you or the ministry won't phase away. And that's a legitimate argument to some degree because it's one of those, if it's in plain view, it's harder to take away. I get that, I understand that. But I think that's a false sense of security because, and I hate to say this in the public, political climate, if you will, the sheriff's up for election every 4 years. We're up for election every 4 years, whether it's under the sheriff or whether it's under the administrator who answers to council. It's at a whim every 4 years to go away with or without the beautiful white chapel. So don't feel so strongly secure in that. I believe with the group you have here now, we're all with you and we understand. And like the sheriff said, he's very passionate, and that was very well said. Kind of felt the exact same way. Now, do I think it's neat? Do I think it's awesome? Do I think it's a great tool? Absolutely. But I don't know that the feasibility is really there, and that's really where the concern's been. One question I have is volunteers built it. If for some strange reason some billionaire decided to say, hey, I want to pay to have that thing moved, is that something that we'd be interested in entertaining?
You know, if you say moving to site, naturally, I mean, this is a council decision, this is council county property, you guys will make that decision. My understanding, once you tell us you want it done, we're gonna make it happen.
Can we get a cost though, instead of a
That's what I'm
last?
trying to get a cost. Is it okay?
One of the issues of not moving the church is that they would absolutely have to take the top off.
Absolutely.
Because of the height.
Well, that's a steeple, right?
Well, actually, the whole roof
The
is
whole
pitched.
roof system. And he said he wouldn't put it back on. He said, then you run risk of weather. He recommended, the guy from Cox Builder in Georgia recommended not moving the church.
Has he walked the road?
No,
So he hasn't seen it?
they go on Google Earth and do all the prices. Everywhere I call, that's the way they did it.
But he hadn't actually come up physically seen the
No,
place?
they don't
Okay.
see
Try to
that.
get that
They're not
moving
going to do that, actually.
Let me add a couple of things. We're regulated under Department of Corrections, so there's certain security standards we have to meet. And this jail, the church, wherever it would be, is the only really spot we've got now is set aside for the LEC in the future. And so, and if this church is outside the secure area, then we have to have 1, 2, 3, 4 of our team, the guards, to go out there with them. So for us, that would kind of be a nightmare of having to put up with that, just on what we have to operate with on a day-to-day basis.
Can I make
Sure.
a point? I'm going to respectfully disagree with you guys. Yeah, you can be saved anywhere. I agree with that. And we have a sheriff who's all about this. But the decisions we make are going to be here for many, many, many years.
Sure.
And somebody else comes in, and this room right here could be a church. You know, but we can get busy and make it something else. And then it doesn't get scheduled in there. And then it's not known about. We got situations now where they're coming out and saying, well, we got to do a meeting, and we can't have a church service. We're in a society that is trying to push God out of everything.
I agree.
And I think, unbeknownst to ourselves, we're doing just that. Because I think as a council and as a Christian, I believe that we need to have a building that when the guy goes in there, he can see something that says, you know what, maybe I got a chance. And we're looking at maybe one life here, one life there. And yeah, what if the ACLU comes in? You know, they can tell me all day long, you can't say Jesus' name in prayer. Sorry. I'm just not willing to back down on what I believe. Now, if there's a will, there's a way. We don't have to do it with county dollars. We could have church. I would go to my church and say, can we raise the money to move this building? Is there another way to move it? Is there another way to do this? But I feel like as a county, who we are is such an integral part of everybody here. Having that place that when that prisoner goes, there's a chance. There's hope. And 4 walls and a roof inside of the rest of the building, I'm sorry, it's too many chances for that never to exist again. It can be wiped away.
I'm not really disagreeing with you. My only point was that the building doesn't make your connection with God. It's the people that can help that happen. But I agree with you. If there was a way that it could be safe, that symbol could be there where they could walk in and feel what it's like to sit on the pews. Because I don't think you're gonna have pews up in the detention center. You're not going to be able to make it really look like a church. You're just going to be able to have church. So, I mean, I get your point. But my concern is safety to the guards, safety to the prisoners that are there, but also the cost that's involved. And to your point, there may be enough people, the billionaire or the millionaire or whatever.
We can find a place inside the fifth. We have to make a place inside. I'm sure there's land out there. There's a way to put it inside a secured area. I don't think we need to put it outside of a secured area.
Yeah. Is there a way to make?
Now, when the sheriff comes back and asks us for more staff, because on days that they meet, he's got to have 9 more officers out there.
If they're not on a secured area. If they're in a secured area, he doesn't. Is that true?
Can I speak to that real quick?
Because you deal with that right now.
I deal with it now. The issue that I see with doing this for the correctional officer level, we have to send somebody in there to monitor. Right now, we don't send anybody. To me, there's liability there. So they're sitting in the church. with volunteers without an officer there. There has to be an officer there. These inmates that we're going to be dealing with, they're not family court, bench warrant guys. They're not 30-day sentences. These are murderers, rapists, kidnappers. We're going to be asking the staff to take them out of the jail. Even if we're in the fenced area, out of the jail, back and forth to a church, which is opportunity. It's opportunity once they get out, unless we shackle them while they're there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The LEC is a holding facility, correct?
Yes.
So when you're talking murderers and rapists, they're the ones that are in the stockade now.
No, those are the ones at the sheriff.
But they haven't been sentenced to anything yet. They're still, that's a holding, waiting to be sentenced.
Right.
They're awaiting trial.
There's some females, let me just make sure this is correct. There are sentenced females in the current
There are.
law enforcement center.
Okay.
So we're looking at just offering this for sentenced inmates only. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'd like to be able to let the guys that are doing the ministry
The
have
issue
the
is,
flexibility.
these inmates will then know on
that's up to the
Tuesdays,
sheriff.
I'm going to have an opportunity to step out of the building, and there's going to be volunteers there, where they're going to have access to volunteers. I may have one staff for 20, 25, 30 inmates in a church service. There's opportunity. I go to church every Sunday. Love the Lord. I don't want to put staff in a place where, hey, we're short-staffed today. I'm sending one officer out. It's him and 40 inmates. They've got opportunity.
My understanding is the way we built this jail, we're able to do a lot more with a lot less.
I got a question
Is
for
that
you.
not true?
But
Is
you're
that the
taking
whole?
them out of this secure
you're-
jail.
you're-
Right, but we're adding another 14, 20 guards to what we have right now.
Or adding another 30-something people, too.
Right now, you guys are just doing it to whom? Sentenced inmates,
Yeah,
correct?
They're all minimum security.
All right, why not keep doing those guys, but those that are holding hardened criminals, whatever, waiting trial, the jail's supposed to have some technology in there, let them watch it closed circuit. Give those guys that opportunity. You don't have to remove those guys that are at risk. You only dealing with those that are sentenced like you're doing now. Can we not do that?
Well, now you're going against the argument of even having it on site at all. If you're going to watch it closed circuit, why don't I need the building on site at all? Ultimately, who goes and who doesn't go is up to the sheriff. I mean, it's his facility. He's the one responsible for it. So we don't really have a dog in that fight at all. That's ultimately up to the sheriff.
Well, also remember, most of our escapees in Pickens County over the years has been from the stockade. So just because they have a sentence doesn't mean they're cut smarter.
May I make a statement in support of Mr. Whitehurst? The location where you hold this service makes a lot of difference. I've been involved with this ministry since at least 95 and sometime before that. And Bart Turner and I, we're allowed to go inside the prison to invite the guys for the service, and as far as I'm concerned, the location and the surroundings makes a lot of difference, and I appreciate what Mr. Whitehurst had to say.
I think a good example of success that can be had outside of going to the church is what Joe's had already with my Seaward. I mean, we started taking non-sentenced inmates, and I've got 21 of them right now, but I've got 19 in Seaward. He's been able to go in there, he's been able to speak with inmates, he's had great success. We've had several who've accepted Christ. There's been movement without them going into that church building. God will move if we allow Him to move.
Drew, my understanding, you worked in the jail. You worked in the detention center for years. You saw pastors come through the jail. I did myself, and minister and hold services inside that old jail, the old jail. You've seen it both ways. How do you compare that?
I think the stockade is a great option to have if you have the same type of inmate. And even if I had my way now, I would change the way that I monitor what is going on in the church. I don't have cameras in the church. There should be cameras in the church. I don't have officers in the church. There should be an officer in the church. If something were to happen in that church, it is volunteers and it is inmates. And my staff is not there. They have to respond to it.
Why do you not have a staff member in there?
Because I don't have the numbers to be able to do that. I have 3 max on a team, and they are not. I'm not able to send one. They're dealing with kitchen, food, visits, laundry change, whatever other number of things it may be. But we've gone this way for years and years and years. But the problem is it takes once, and something happens, and then we run into an issue. And my concern is if we remove them from a place designed to house inmates securely, where there is opportunity for us still to do some work for Christ, and we remove them from that and they have to walk outside. It seems small for us, because maybe it's not something you deal with every day, but these inmates, any opportunity that they can find, any slip up, any mistake, they'll take advantage of that. And they're where we're just giving another opportunity for my staff to either be hurt, or somebody to disappear, or something worse to happen to a volunteer. And it concerns me. I see liability. Liability is what we deal with mostly. So.
What if you were to, I'm asking you all this question, what if we were to see if somebody was able to pay to have the church moved there, but it was only, and you found a space for it, or we created a space for it, that it was only used for special services. In other words, it's there, the icon's there, people can see it when they come in. It's not used every time you're going to have a church service, but for special services, you've got the chapel there to use. In the meantime, you still can hold church inside.
I want to just say for giggles, and I agree with you more than you realize I agree with you. I don't want anybody to think that if we don't get the building moved, that it's the end of the ministry, because I really feel like that's what we're sitting here arguing, is that the ministry is going to die if that physical building don't move. And I think little white churches are absolutely phenomenal. The one down there on East Otoe is one of my favorites, for personal reasons, but it's one of my favorites. Something to be said for all that. I agree with all that. But the Christian faith denomination, whatever you want to call it, the group that is growing the largest at the fastest rate are popping up in shopping centers, in old Walmart buildings, in old Bilo buildings, and plain square buildings that look nothing like a little white church in the valley. Now, while they all have their place, and that is my personal style and thing, it's not the end of the ministry if you can't get it moved. You can have, and I'm not going back to the argument of these 4 walls. I'm going back to the argument of you don't need a white church to have your ministry. And I think the ministry, it's all about the heart, not the head, not the eyes. It's all about the heart. You got to keep that in mind. And I think that we're painting the picture that if that white church doesn't move, we're not supporting Christianity. We're not supporting faith, and that's not the furthest from the truth by what the sheriff is saying, who's ultimately going to have to say when it's all said and done. So I want to make that perfectly clear to everybody, that it's not the end if we don't get the thing moved.
Well, I will say to your point, all those places and shopping centers and backyard barns and all that, they have a place. And I think when you come to jail, you're looking for that hope and a place that says this is where there's a chance. But we're not any way we can do it, and we can put cameras in. We can have churches pay for it. We can build another building.
But we're not even given the opportunity for that place to exist outside of that white building. And I think that's where my frustration is we think that white building is the only place. And I mean, it's almost, I feel like we're at a church split because we're wanting to build a new sanctuary, but we don't want to leave the old sanctuary. And that's really where the argument I feel like we're having right now.
If the sheriff says it ain't going to happen, it ain't going to happen, regardless of what.
You're right about that. But.
And when are you up for re-election, Sheriff?
Same time you are.
When are you up for re-election? 2 years? In 2 years, you got a new sheriff. It'll be a new rule.
I don't know if y'all seen the new jail or not. Would y'all be interested in taking a tour of the facility?
I've already
the property.
I've not toured the property. I've toured the facility.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah, I took a 2-hour tour.
Okay, I know we got progress going now.
Yeah, I didn't get lost, but I took. But I just
go ahead and get around the property and the building and see what we have, what's available. The sheriff's talking about what properties is available if you do want to move it,
and what would the cost be?
Yeah, get the cost.
Mike just texted me. We won't get you a definite price on moving the building.
It may be cheaper to build another building.
Well, that's something we talked about.
That's what I would say. The thing that concerns me is just like this wall right here. 62 seats is all you're allowed in here. Now, if that room's about the same size, then you're limited on your space. That's what I've been told. It's totally hearsay. But I was told that, if they do move it and we lose the battle as far as having a church in a separate place built outside, that, okay, we're not going to be able to have the ones that normally show up every week because we'll have too many.
How many do you usually have come to the service?
Well, everyone's different. Like I said, they do a church service. We do one Sunday morning. Most y'all do those on Sunday night. And when we have one guy leads the singing. We have 3 people that play instruments. We have an organ, a piano player that comes volunteers, comes every Sunday. Then we have 2 guys that play guitars, and they play. And then, so normally I'm there. If I'm off work, I'll be there. So we usually average somewhere between 6 or 7 of us that show up on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. And then you have what's left. And that's what I heard.
How many of the people who are in jail come on a Sunday? Inmates on a Sunday.
It all depends. It can be 10 some days. And like I said, we went through change because, believe it or not too long ago, they said no, only one side a county side can come up one Sunday, and then the state side can come one Sunday. So that cut us way down because they put limits on it. And then we were down. Then they started letting them come back together again. And I don't know what politics played behind that, but we could have 20, 30 guys in there, just in that little facility.
20 to 30, you think?
How big is the room that you're proposing now?
The one in the new facility, it's about 20 by 40.
What's the capacity?
The fire marshal and Dean, that's it. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Secure capacity, which you have to have security there for. I mean, you got to have security when you have so many guys in a room too, right?
Yes.
So whether they're in a church outside there or in that room, you got to have extra security there.
Inside that facility, we may have 2. Out in where we got to look outside and inside, it may be 4. Who knows how big.
We won't need a facility that can house multiple dorms. The way that it's going to be set up right now, if we were to go to the jail and we wanted to have a service, you couldn't take A block and C block and put them together for church because they would kill each other. So you would, regardless of what we do, you're going to have individual dorms go. So if we're looking at 8 pods, 6 pods, it's going to take moving a group out of that place, taking them to church, moving them back from the church, back to the dorm, grabbing another block, moving them, because you can't mix the two. And that's not to say that it can't be done. It's just going to require manpower.
Well, SCDC controls that because of classification. You can't put certain inmates together.
And that's what, let's not get off track. Remember, during this, what we want to do is jail and all the stuff, we got a jail room too. So remember, we're a detention facility. We got to keep that in mind at all times and what state regulations may be.
And these people that's in the detention center is not folks out there at Stockade or people at Sky. Life sentences, they know if they stay straight, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've worked in that jail, and I'm telling you, it's dangerous. And I'll tell you this, if you take these people out of a secure facility, I am not going to be responsible. I'll be one councilman that will
take them out of the secure facility.
Listen, if you take them out and put them in that church outside that building,
inside the fence.
Well,
I'm not talking about putting anything outside the fence.
So when they take that piece of the pew and make them a shank out of that big splinter.
I'm just telling you, you can go. I went through and shut down cells and see what they make in there. So,
Removing them from that building, even if it's in the fenced area, is removing them from the secure facility. Because they're being removed from the place that was designed to house them. So we're losing control of doors. It's just basically moving them in there. It's like I started working with the jail Monday of last week. On Tuesday, I got an axe, a homemade axe out of the jail, made out of a broom handle and a piece of sheet metal that they folded over and sharpened down. The inmates that we're looking to deal with are not concerned about destroying something. They're not worried about the fact that I have 3 children. They don't care. They care about how they look with another gang member. That they care about beef that they've had on the street with this other guy that they're trying to meet up with. It's not the same caliber as what I deal with at the stockade. It's like night and day. So the guys at the stockade, they're all sentenced. If they do something stupid, I can take their time. They can go to the hole. But if a guy in the jail does something who's sitting on 3 murder charges, a murder charge, a rape, he doesn't care if I take his good time. He doesn't care if I take his work credits. He knows he's done. So it's not the same type of inmate. To remove something like an axe or a huge shank, it is an issue that staff deals with every day, and I just feel like moving them in and out is going to create issues where they will use those things on staff, on volunteers. It's a real concern. It's something I feel like Captain would say. I feel like there's an issue there that if we do that, we're asking for trouble.
So I don't know from the safety standpoint. I have to listen to you guys, and I'm with you on we've got to figure out a way to continue to minister, and we can't lose that. Is it okay with you if we ask the question to continue to do the research to get the price so that we can find out about that? Is it possible, Sheriff, is it possible if they move or build one there, what would that look like, and what would just give us an idea of the manpower and stuff that he's talking about? Or is it to the point of where it's so far beyond safety concerns that you don't feel comfortable doing it? I mean, just give it, like I said, I only know what I know. I know that I want to be able to minister to these guys, but I'm hearing loud and clear that the safety issue on that is paramount. So, and I believe that the council wants to do the right thing.
Well, I guess if it's too dangerous to move the prisoners that are LEC that are waiting on trial, we've got the stockade group that's already contained separate, right?
Right now, yes, sir.
They will be contained separate.
Yes, sir. They'll be in a different.
They'll always be different.
Yes, sir.
So a worst case scenario, maybe we don't have it available for everybody just because of safety issues, because I don't want to put people in jeopardy. But if we have it available for those guys that are sentenced, because they ain't got nothing else.
Well, here's the thing. We can't deny religious stuff to one section or whatever and not the other.
You can get those guys, the ones inside the secure facility, they have the room.
Well, I think we can do what we want to get our mission across as far as saving people, saving lives and everything else by staying in a secure facility that is designed that way. And that's what it comes down to. And it's not, when this happens, or something bad happens, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to throw you under the bus because I said we should not do this. We should use the facility that we have, and I stress that. And that's what, remember, I can't say enough of how much religion is going to be part of it. But this is a jail. This is a detention facility set up, designed, that we're paying millions of dollars for to protect the people of this county and my officers. And that's where anytime we open a door, anytime we move somebody, there's a risk of them being stabbed or hurt or whatever. And that's got to be your number one. Those are your employees too. And y'all got to look at that. This is not something that we kind of can do or can't do halfway. The security of this facility is number one, and then you got to work from there. But let me see this also. I talked with Dorchester today, and they have people come in all the time that they're in a secure area. There's a reason that nobody across the state, and what I do, all the religious stuff we're trying to do, they don't have a chapel set outside or away from the secure area. So that's what you got to look at as Christians. But as councilmen, how much is it worth? $1 million to you? Is it worth $2 million? You know, when something goes wrong, that's what we got to look at in the whole thing. As bad as I hate it, I love that church out there, but we have to. We're managers. We're managers of liability managers. managers of people, and we've got to make some hard decisions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thoughts, motions, questions?
Get a cost.
We'll have your cost, I guess, by the
Let's
next
see.
the whole week.
What I'm hearing is that the sentence prisoners are the ones that we've been dealing with and working with that population for 30 years. We know how to work with that population. If the other population is too dangerous, then the safety issue comes in. But if there's any way to give those people that are there a chance, a place they can go, somehow, some way to make that work.
And that's something that I made a note because it's a distinction I hadn't thought about researching. I want to research if there's a peniological reason, a valid reason to treat them differently. Will that justify the separate? So I'm curious about that.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Pastor.
And I still, for the record, feel like I'm in the middle of a church split.
I agree. I'm with you on that.
I just want to say something before I leave. I appreciate your time, and I didn't really mean it to be dire out like this, but nevertheless, a lot of good questions have been raised. I want to thank Drew for all the hard work he's done at the stockade, because he's put in a valid effort out there to make it work the way we need it to work, so souls could be saved. But before I go, I'd just like to say this, if we took Clemson University football team and put them out there at the stockade and they played a game, would you go see them?
I wasn't going to sit at Clemson either.
That's just a thought like through my mind. If you took them out and put them over there, would you go see them? So it does kind of make a difference where you go. But like you said, it ain't got to be guaranteed that church building. Nevertheless, we're trying to change the way the man thinks, we can change the way the man goes. And that's the key behind it. We got to be safe in everything we do. Risk manager like myself, we got to be able to manage the risk in everything we do. And I think we can work together and come up with a good solution. And I appreciate your time and your effort. And I'm just happy just to be on the entertainment. Could have closed the door with me.
We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
This past Saturday, like I said, we baptized 8. They got to eat some tilapia fish, and we just enjoyed one another. And the next thing you know, the Sunday comes Sunday, 8 people got saved. We're on the right track. We just need y'all support. And whatever you do, we're going to be grateful. Thank you. We're going to be grateful to you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith. Good to see you.
Moving on to item number B, public transportation survey log number 98.
We've got Chris Brinker, Planning Director, President, and Mr. Keith Brockton, Chief as President. That last month, you guys asked us to look at the possibility of transportation study. There's some information, I think, in our current plans, and GPAS has some information offered as well. Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's nice to talk to you once about planning issues rather than code ordinances. Transportation planning, I can give you great advice and great guidance when it comes to overall transportation. I looked at the minutes, it's an email chatter, it really dealt with public transportation funding. I can still give good advice, but I go to the experts. So I asked Keith from GPAS to come here to talk to you tonight about the funding mechanism for transportation, public transportation, section 5310 funds for elderly transportation, disabled, workman transportation, that type of issue. I think it's also email chatter deal with that. So we're here to answer any questions, be part of the discussion, but Keith's here to answer most of the difficult funding questions. So, Keith.
He put you right in the hot seat, didn't he?
I'll come up next week. I'll share. So not knowing what the discussion will be and what kind of questions, I guess just open it up for Keith. He's got some slides, some PowerPoint, if he needs to get to that. He can definitely show you some slides on some funding that's coming up. There's a call for funding through GPAS, some federal funding, because of GPATS, they're the recipient for these funds. So all we have to do is provide a project to them, they'll help fund it. When it deals with elderly transportation, disabled, work-linked type funds. So I'll let Keith give an overview and go through.
Can I ask a question? I know Councilman Bowers, this was your motion to put it. What are you looking for?
Well, and as we discussed in the committee meeting, the original, when we put it in, was obviously public transportation doesn't exist in Pickens County. To a degree. To a degree. The majority of Pickens County. I know that there's been some work with Greenlink trying to do some connector stuff here and there, this, that, and the other. But overall, there is no public transportation for the most part in Pickens County. So the original discussion was, you've got to start somewhere. And we know we're not going to solve the problem tomorrow or today or in the next week, but you have to start somewhere. So the thought was starting with a transportation study to see what would it even look like or need to look like, number one. Because I don't think a Greenlink style service would necessarily work everywhere in Pickens County, or a CAT style service would work everywhere in Pickens County, but there's probably hybrids out there that would work. Funding for transportation in Pickens County, ulterior options, because one of the big issues, I'm in healthcare, big issues I see is getting back and forth to doctor's appointments. Very difficult, very difficult. Follow-up appointments cause more hospitalizations, recurring hospitalization. You see where I'm going with that? So options that are out there for things like that. Work, when we talk about economic development and a job force, well, if you don't have a driver's license, you don't have a car, you don't have reliable transportation to work, that's a ding right there, you're not going to get hired. So obviously, to improve our workforce. So not only looking at the grand overall, if you will, but those little caveats as well, but starting with what would a study look like, what would it cost us? I mean, we were very much in the infancy. I wanted to start the conversation. That's the reason I even put it on the agenda, is you have to start somewhere, and I want to start the conversation.
Sure. What a transportation system in Pickens County could look like, it depends on what you want. There's any range of options from periodic on-call routes, on-call system. That's typically how Spartanburg County runs theirs. To fixed route service, like City of Spartanburg, City of Greenville, and that extends into Greenville County and then Clemson University as well. Clemson is a little bit of a different beast because it is focused on university commuting. So Clemson, Pendleton, and Central are very well served by the Clemson area transit system. But they're very insular. They're very focused on the efficiency of that small system for their students and faculty and staff. Greenlink in Greenville is a much more typical urban system. You may see some success with that in Easley, maybe some Liberty and Pickens. But I wouldn't say that fixed route service outside of those municipalities would be very effective. The Section 5310 funding is got a few slides prepared, but it is very, very bare bones. It is focused on elderly and disabled riders, and it has to be certified as such. There's a lot of reporting back to the feds on making sure that that is what you're running the system for. It is on call, it is not fixed route. So it does serve the more rural areas a little bit better. The Section 5310 are not formula funding, so it's not the same type of funding that Greenland Transit and Clemson Area Transit gets. These are done by application on an annual basis. We currently have $1 million, but that includes several years of carryover because we're just getting up to speed on how we're spending it down. Our annual allocation varies depending on Federal Transit Administration, but it's typically around $330,000 per year. So we're trying to spend down our balance before anything lapses. So as Chris mentioned, we're in a call for projects right now. We announced that at the end of last month, and it's been going publicly throughout this whole month. We currently have 2 providers that make use of that, and that is Senior Solutions and the other one's in Greenville County, so they're only in Greenville County, so it wouldn't really matter if Pickens County. But Senior Solutions is throughout the upstate, and they are in Pickens County. They used to be even heavier in Pickens County. Back prior to 2010, I believe they contracted with GreenLink. Back when GreenLink was ranked, the older programs, the feds change things all the time. It was an older program with elderly and disabled, and Senior Solutions was able to get some funds, and they contracted with Greenville Transit Authority to run the finances for that program. The Section 5310 is, again, transportation for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Private or nonprofit organizations, states, local government authorities, operators of public transportation, they're all eligible. However, if a system like Clemson Area Transit or Greenville Transit Authority were going to run the system, they would have to do that on top of what they already do for ADA services. They can't supplement, they can't replace their requirement for ADA with 5310. So they have to do 10% of their formula funding, which is called 5307, before they can start using Section 5310. There is a local match. The federal share of eligible transit costs may not exceed 80%, and that's capital, and then 50% for operating expenses. So 20% of your capital purchases and 50% of your operating expenses need to be funded through some local source, and that can be through fees imposed upon the riders, or that can be local funds by the jurisdictions that are helping to put this service forward. 10% that is eligible to fund the program can be administrative costs, including administration, planning, and technical assistance. That's 100%. You don't have to pay any local match for that. 55% of the application must be capital expenditures. So you have to start with getting your system up and running. I have a list here of the traditional examples and non-traditional examples. I'm not going to go through all those. We can see there's a lot of things you can do with this, these services. Primarily buying the buses, and that's where we have a lot of startup issues where we just need to get the buses to run. And then you can, acquisition of transportation services, travel training, volunteer driver programs. There's a lot of things you can do with 5310. That's all I have for the slides. There's a lot more information, but it is extremely fluid and technical. FTA is constantly changing rules. I have a member of my staff, Hassan Kane, who would be happy to speak with anyone who is interested in pursuing Section 5310 funding. It is a good way to start up a system if your system is if your goal is currently to serve the elderly and disabled, and then see where you want to go from there. If you decide that you want to start a fixed route service and access the formula funds, the 5307 funds, back to the map, we can only, from a GPAS perspective, we can only serve what's in the green shaded. Outside the green shaded is SCDOT, so you have to apply on a statewide basis for the funding. That is both for 5310 and 5307. Appalachian Council of Government does help with some of that, but for the most part, those are state funds that have to be applied for on a statewide basis. So most of northern Pickens County and the 6 Mile area are still considered rural when it comes to the feds, and so when the federal government puts restrictions on where those funds are, they're done by urbanized area and by the Metropolitan Planning Organization, GPAS. The green area, shaded area is our boundary, and the feds then say, okay, well, that's your boundary. The funds that we give you have to be spent within that area, and you cannot spend it outside of it.
We pretty much run the Appalachian Council of Governments outside QCAPS.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. I know that's a very high level of probably confusing you. I'd be happy to answer any
So if I said, you know, I want to get some professional, because there's one out there somewhere, to come in and tell me what my transportation system in Pickens County needs to look like in 10 years, and how am I going to get there and I'm going to achieve that? How would I go about that? And what would it cost? And what funding is out there for me so I don't have to pay for it all?
There are a large number of transportation planning consultants out there who they exist to do plans. They exist to help jurisdictions do plans. They do cost, and for the most part, they are very malleable to what money is available. If you only have $50,000 for a plan, they can do a $50,000 plan. They would do a better plan for $100,000. They can do it. So it's hard to say without knowing exactly what scope is desired out of this plan, what that would cost. Most of the plans we see usually start around the $50,000 range, and they go on up. The GPAS Long-Range Transportation Plan, which some of you may have seen, that one was around $600,000 plan. And that was 2 years worth of GPAS funding in order to do so. So there's a very wide range of what these planning consultants can or cannot do. Depending on where the funding source comes from, determines how those vendors, those consultants can be selected. If you use state or federal funding, you have to go with your state or federal procurement policy, which I'm sure Pickens County is very familiar with. And it's a cumbersome process, but it does get you an objective look at who can do your planning for you, and an objective selection of that consultant. If the money is brought with donations or private sources, you can pick whoever you want. At that point, the state or plans, they're not going to interfere with that. Though that usually happens a lot quicker. You go through state or federal procurement, the process can take months to get a plan.
Can I ask a high view looking down? Basic system, how much capital, how much expense to run?
That is outside of my wheelhouse of knowledge.
Have you ever?
GPAS doesn't run a transit system.
I'm sorry, but you work with them all the time. You see all the numbers. You do you work with all the stuff. I'm not asking you to. I'm saying you deal. This is what you do for a living, and I should be able to say, okay, how much does one generally, when someone comes in and does this, how much do they spend in capital to do something? How much are we looking at for a basic system like he's talking about elderly people and transportation hospitals, and then what's it cost to run it?
The funds that Senior Solutions and Turning Point Investing was the other applicant I can remember. They applied for around $200,000 each to run just a few buses. I can't remember off the top of my head how many buses they applied for this round. And that's to run it for a year. They're going to have to come back in future years to keep up with that funding. Greenland Transit, their budget, I don't know their on-top budget with all their local matches and all their revenue sources, because they've got different budgets for marketing and their fare box return. They receive around $3.2 million from GPAS annually. That's to run 16 buses a day. Dick Scrapples are the full 35-foot buses.
How much do they cost?
A full-size Greenland bus or Clemson Transit bus, not the Benny bus, I'm not sure what those cost. But a full 35, 40-foot bus costs around $400,000. If you go electric, it's double the cost, $800,000.
You mentioned something about state funds rural areas. How hard is that to get?
It depends on the system that you want to run. Back before GPAS expanded into out past Liberty in 2013, when we had to absorb this little wing out here by Clemson. Clemson Area Transit was running off a rural system, and they got the lion's share of the state money because they were running the largest system in the state that was not urbanized. So the way the feds allocate transit funding is based off ridership and bus vehicle miles traveled. So the larger system you have, the larger the funding you can get. We use that same kind of formula to split the money between Greenville Transit Authority and Clemson Area Transit. Right now, it's about 2/3 Greenville Transit Authority and about 1/3 Clemson Area Transit. I couldn't say how much money you could get from the state, because I'm not familiar with how much money the state provides to other. There's numerous small rural programs around the state in small jurisdictions that are. I'm more on the MPO side. Which is any jurisdiction 50,000 and over, they have their own pots of funding. The rural sides, without Clemson in the mix, Seneca takes a lot of the funding out of there. I think Greenwood has a system. But you have the smaller municipalities that just run.
Well, Clemson gets $75 per student per semester.
Yeah, and so
I have to know that number exactly.
That's
whether you use it or not.
That student fee from Clemson, that pays for a lot of that. Not only pays for the transit system, it also pays for the parking, any parking maintenance they have.
So they have a separate fee for just the transit system.
It's a separate system. It's a separate fee now. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So are you thinking that we need to look towards how do we create our own system, or are you looking for how do we get Clemson Area Transit or Greenville to expand?
Well, you said something that made me think, I don't think the fixed route system would work in Pickens County. I mean, that's I think part of the obstacle why nobody's ever tried to tackle it, because you're not going to run 30 whatever foot buses up to east of Towie. I mean, let's be honest about that, right? The call for service, I foresee a hybrid type program of some sort, whether it be a public-private partnership, whether it be solely public, whether it be solely private, I have no idea. The 5310 funds, something I wasn't aware of. I think you're right. That is a start. It's a call for service type deal. But I can honestly see the benefit of the mix of a call for service type deal with a fixed route connecting to GreenLink or the CAT buses. And you can correct me if I'm totally wrong in my thought process here. But I think that's a jumping off point. But that's something that's already available out there, that whether it be we haven't advertised it, whether it be no one knew about it, whatever, nobody's interested in it, I don't know. I think at some point, though, we have to make the decision, do we want to do what the six of us, this is what I would do, let's just do this. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Or do we look at trying to find that $50,000 at some point and saying, all right, show me what your ideal situation is here, and let's go from there with some professional in the business. I don't know. I just want to have the conversation.
You know what I see happening? In 10 years, the way we get from point A to point B is going to change drastically.
Oh, I agree. 100%.
I mean, look at what Uber and Lyft have done to the transportation industry as a whole. I think that private sector government idea somehow helps like all those different, things are going to evolve in this market of moving people.
Well, Greenville Councilman Fred Payne talked to us about he also is on the GPAT board, and trying to get federal funding for a pod system of sorts. He's high on that. And that's a complete, you're going from one end of the spectrum with the senior solutions all the way to another end of the spectrum of what Councilman Payne's talking about. But that's, to your point, it will change. I just don't know how, and I think that, do we as a council work towards a solution on what we need for our aging and elderly based on opportunities with the 5310 fund? Do we wait for the private sector?
Do we know what the problem is?
Well, I mean, some of it I do.
I think it's beyond elderly, though.
Pardon me?
It's beyond the elderly.
It is. You're right, because in some of the meetings we've had with the Anderson, Oconee, Pickens Mental Health, they said that's their biggest problem.
What's your 5310 funds?
Yeah, the biggest problem is getting patients or getting people to be able to.
The Medicaid Advantage just ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a 4-hour wait if they decide to show up. That ain't cutting it. And I think that's part of the reason why, after sitting in on a meeting, we came to a meeting, I said, you know what, we need to talk about this. My memories are coming back to me. I'm pretty sure that's right, because I feel like we had been somewhere before. But that's really, and I honestly agree. I think that some kind of public-private partnerships, I'm all for. I think that to a degree that's what this is going to end up having to look like at some point. I don't think we could go in and say, hey, let's start a bus company today, come out to county, and be successful with it.
We'd be cheaper paying for the Uber driver to go pick them up and take them.
Exactly right, in reality.
Honestly.
Where we are, guys, we need some guidance on what you need us to look into, what you want us to do. Chris is all excited about finally getting to do some planning. So.
But I will say, in the past, Pickens County's never been ripe for true transportation planning outside of our participation in the LRT BTG paths. So in our comprehensive plan, we've always taken the LRTP and plugged it into our comp plan as our transportation plan, or our transportation study, which the state allows us to do that as our element in the comp plan. We're about to start our 10-year rewrite of the comp plan. You guys funded it in the last budget, or this current budget. We're just now working through formulating the RFP or the RFQ to send that out for firms to submit us their qualifications and their interest in participating in that. I didn't anticipate us being ripe for true transportation planning again. So those funds aren't there for a true standalone transportation planning element. I anticipated, again, using the LRTP, and then if we need to, we can expand and look further, but the funds I requested got approved probably still won't do what we need from a transportation planning standpoint.
We'll get something from our 10-year plan. There is a whole section on transportation and public transportation, correct?
That's correct. We'll get something from it. We will study it further now since it's becoming more ripe for that issue. And perhaps the firms that we get, be general, it won't be, a targeted transportation plan, which a lot of firms, that's just what they do. With what we got approved, we just can't afford a true transportation plan at this point. And it might be from our comp plan, what comes out of that is a need for a true plan. And so a couple years down the road, perhaps this is what we need to start going in, specifically looking at. But we're starting that comp plan process now. And perhaps, whatever firm, eventually gets chosen, they can steer us in that direction and provide us some more detail in that one element.
And GPAS does have funds that come up periodically, about every year, depending on how our carryover is with our planning funds. The federal government lets us know, here's how much you have left over, and historically it's been about $100,000 a year that we've been able to put towards plans. This past year we put it all towards an upstate freight plan that Alachua Council of Governments is doing. So we're putting in $100,000 towards upstate freight study.
With those, you won't be asked to foot the bill 100%. There's a max portion to that. So you won't have to fund the whole. If if it comes out to be a $100,000 plan that we have to pay for, there's just a match portion of that. Of course, you gotta realize we're gonna compete with other entities within GBAS for those planning funds. So we have to make that, as strong as we can from an application standpoint.
We hadn't used them before, why not now?
We're way better than the rest of them. Right, see.
And there's been a lot of use in Pickens County, especially from Easley and Clemson with those funds. They've both done transportation plans with those funds before in the past. We've helped fund over 2 dozen studies through those funds since we started in 2007.
Easley Bike Head Plan was part of that?
Yep.
I don't think that's a start. I mean, I think Chris knows the direction that we're looking at. You guys could disagree with me, but I mean, I don't have the answer. There's nothing specific that I'm saying. I really feel like we need to do this today. I think that you got the idea down, what my intent was of even bringing the conversation up.
Right.
And I knew we wouldn't have an immediate answer, but I wanted to at least start the conversation.
It's an aspect that a hired staff, typically on our scale, we just can't manage to take care of. We have to go outside to seek that assistance. So we're good at it, I think.
And when it comes to whether fixed route or on call, just from a perspective of what I've heard in the other plans, especially from GTA and CAT, is the priority is they're moving in baby steps. Both of them have had to take a hard look at their systems in order to maintain financial solvency, especially Greenville Transit Authority.
How bad off is Greenville right now?
They're on the edge. They're going to be going to Greenville County and City.
I know they're not operating in the black. How far in the red are they?
They're not. They're still in the black right now, but if they don't get additional funding within 2 years, they'll be in the red.
Okay.
So they're going to be reassessing what they need. They have an assessment. They're starting to approach the city and county council about additional funding to cover their shortfall.
But there are ways to run bus systems in the black.
There are.
Or transportation, I don't want to say bus, transportation systems in the black.
Yes, there is. And the staff that Greenville Transit Authority has on board right now is the staff that they need to get into black. What they're dealing with a lot of is legacy in the past 10, 20, 30 years. In 2008, the system had basically crumbled, and they were brought into the city of Greenville, and they've been rebuilding themselves ever since. I know that the priority when it comes to Greenville Transit Authority and Clemson Area Transit, when it comes to Pickens County, is to connect up in Easley along 123. It's the shortest route, it's the fastest route, and you have some good-sized municipalities in there, which is where they would get the biggest bump in their ridership. As many of you may know, there was some years ago a public system that Greenville Transit Authority ran from Clemson University through Easley and down to CUI Park. That route hemorrhaged money, and they had to stop running it. Clemson University took it over, and they made it private. So that system still runs. You may still see Tiger Transit buses running on 123. That's students, faculty, and staff, and only at certain times of the day. So the university is able to keep the costs under control. Bringing that route back up to full service and public, that's going to require a lot. Clemson University there, or Clemson Area Transit, differentiated from Clemson Tiger Transit that Clemson University runs. They do try to stay more insular. They may get out to Liberty easily if they see a benefit to doing so. Greenville Transit Authority has said, and this is true for even the Greenville County municipalities, they don't reach Travelers Rest, Greer, Fountain Inn, they don't even reach those. So we don't even, the system doesn't even reach all the municipalities in Greenville County. They have said that if they're going to extend any further from where they currently are right now, local support and funding needs to happen. Right now, the Greenville Transit Authority is only funded locally by Greenville County and the city of Greenville. They are going to have additional local funds if they are going to expand any further. So if there is going to be any fixed route service from GTA in Pickens County, it will require support from Pickens County and city of Easley.
Anything else from you?
One thing I hope would be a viable option somewhere down the line is for be some point within the city of Pickens, if people can at least get there to get to other parts of the county or even Greenville or Oconee County for school, work, medical, whatever. It'd be great for something to work out for
I'm
us.
going to train to go from Pickens to Easley. That would be really
Let's
nice.
just get the Jetsons to do it. No, I'm being serious.
Well,
I am too.
that's one of the things that they talk
They've
about.
already got that.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Wes, 100%. And that's what I'm talking about, the hybrid type system.
We got kids, get a chance to get education, don't have transportation.
Agree with you 100%.
We'll keep you up to speed as our comp plan comes along.
Left
Thank you for
education
taking
out.
time.
Work,
Appreciate
education's the other piece.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Oh, you're welcome, anytime.
Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Do you want a 5-minute break?
Oh, yes.
Just push. What time is it?
7:30.
What time are we going to stop?
When we're done.
Yeah, we're going to take a break.
If
y'all want to.
Make a motion for
Make a motion to take
recess.
a 5-minute recess.
All in favor, say, signify by raising your hands. 5-minute recess. I'm going to call us back into our regular session for Committee of the Whole. Our next item is a review of Fire Board of Districts countywide, log number 55.
This was a request from you guys last time. Y'all wanted some time to review it. You have to have this added back on. We got Chairman Wilson here for the Fire Service Board. I also sent you guys an email this morning from Vendors Fire Board. Chairman, he wanted you to have some information that he felt they'll pass along as well.
So where are you guys now that we've had time to review and look at this?
On the plan, I would feel more comfortable with it if it's more developed. The plan we got from Florence was very detailed. All right? I would feel more comfortable. It's more developed. We got to take care of our people, and getting the pick and a poke, to me, is not a good thing. We got to make our constituents, the people paying the bills, taxpayers, which are all of us as well, but still, I think we got to make them aware of something before we decide to pursue this too much, because we don't want any surprises. I think the boards don't need to go away. We may have to define their roles or give them a chance to stay involved. We don't want to lose their involvement, because we can't do too much too fast. We do too much too fast. It's not a good thing. You've seen it in your work environment. I've seen it in my work environment, different work environments. We got to be methodic in what we do with this. The system now, is it perfect? No. Does it need fixing? Yes. Does it need to be more unified? Yes. Then we got some districts, Florence guy talked about some districts opting out. Is that viable for a certain part of our county? Because I think it's a huge concern for some of those guys is whether or not they maintain service. Right now, they say they will maintain what they got, but is there any guarantee? Because sooner or later, if your funds aren't what they normally are, then something's got to give. You have that issue. And there's a few other things I have, but those are some of the things off the top of my head. Also, the autonomy. We got to preserve that. Also, the type leadership that's going to be.
What do you mean preserve autonomy?
Every district maintains this identity. And there needs to be some kind of ownership within each district. We can't strip them of their identity and strip them of responsibility and things like that. Also, will the chiefs in the county be going away? Will they? Things like that.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. I don't think that we go down the road of speculating. Well, that's what happens. And I even think about that with my regular job. When you start saying, well, here's what the plan is to start here, and then everybody speculates what that's going to be like later on, and it spirals into different stories. The 4 things that we had in place to move forward were ISO stayed the same or got better. The people stayed the same, right? No one lost their job. The service was the same or better. And the costs were manageable and down. When we ran, I heard nearly every meeting people talking about their fire fees and how unfair it was for someone who, paying so much when they're on a fixed income, they couldn't afford to do it. Carl, you and I were at one of the meetings there too. We got cornered on that question. And people, really, really upset about how much they were paying and how unfair it was that it was not, equitable across the county. I also look at Councilman Whitehurst saying this is something that we've been wanting to try to do. We've been wanting to work towards this, and we just never been able to get it started. I'm at the point now where Mr. Williman, and this is my opinion, Mr. Williman and his team have spent an awful lot of time to get us to the point to ask us to do just a couple of basic things to start, knowing that we're still 2 years out. In other words, we can pull back at any point and go, well, we're not doing this because of being able to fund it through the budgeting process. But I'm at the point now where we can't continue to kick it down the road, and there's no way, in my opinion, that we're going to be able to get a fully exercised plan of like what they did with the county that came up before, because they had to start at one point and begin to work through that process to get to where they are today. We at least have the ability to look at where they started and where they are and see if there's anything that we can take from that there were some similarities, but then there weren't. So I'm at the point now where I think we either need to move forward or stop talking about it. That's where I am.
What do you mean by move forward?
Move forward with Mr. Williman's plan.
By plan, the initial steps.
The initial steps to move forward to get there, right? Knowing that we're still 2 years out. Which are, I think as you described, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that we weren't going to look at we were going to go to a millage-based system. The districts would remain the same, so everybody keeps their identity. The ISO ratings don't come into effect because the districts all stay the same. The people at this point all stay the same. Our service, that as they're planning, is going to either be the same or get better. What really will change is as far as how it's funded will be through millage once they determine through the next, assessment, how people will be able to pay for that. In order for us to begin the process going forward, I don't like the idea of creating layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I know you guys are in here, and I want you to discount. I'm so thankful for the work that you do, because each fire board does a lot of work. But I believe we either need to seat all the fire boards and move on and not do this anymore, or we need to move forward with the idea of creating one emergency services board that is going to start working on those budgets and preparing what they need, and working with each of the fire chiefs, working within each of the districts to make sure that they get what they need as we begin the process. And in the meantime, as he laid out, we begin the work of through them of not only meeting with every single fire chief, meeting with every single fireman, firewoman, to get them educated as to what we want to do and what their plan is going forward. And then next year, when it gets into the funding mechanism, we work on the millage to make sure that, Ralph's not in here, but to make sure that that's fair and equitable across the board. And then it doesn't take place until the next year.
The other part of the plan was increasing the number of board members on that board to encompass each district.
Every district's represented. So and maybe that's made up of people from existing fire boards. To me, that part, I'm not all I know is I'm thankful that the fire and emergency services people are there when I need them. I don't know enough of the details like Chris does, and other than just what I've learned by talking to the different areas. So that's my...
I guess my question, I'm a little confused. When we move forward, what's going to change? Because you said
The initial thing-
Nothing's changing.
Nothing's changing.
So what happens when we say we're doing this plan? What is different tomorrow that's not today?
Okay, we empower and we see an emergency services board made up of 12 people.
So we're going to add people to the emergency services board.
Right.
What else changes?
And they begin the process of helping us to educate how this is going to work, so that the constituents know your ISO rating's not changing because we're keeping the lines in place, right? Your identity's not changing.
Right. So what are we going to explain to them? That we're just changing to a millage rate?
Eventually, it's going to get to, instead of the fire fee is going to go away,
right?
Your millage rate is going to go in place. And what does that mean to you?
But the questions they're going to ask is my board still here? Do we still have autonomy? What about the district lines? These are the questions that people are going to ask. So my question is, when we do this, are we changing any of that? Are we just saying go forth with the plan? But I guess my question is, very specifically, what's happening that changes from today to tomorrow? I get we had
one board. Millage will take effect in.
So one board. So right off, all the boards are gone.
Correct.
Okay. So when we pass this,
we'd have to vote on it.
No, I'm just saying. But if we pass this, then the boards are all at that point gone.
Correct.
Okay.
Because their number one job is what is their job?
I'm just asking.
You don't need a fire board if you've got a board.
I'm asking. Yeah. When you say go with this, I want to know what this is.
I understand.
So what we're saying is, if we put this out, put it there, that after this passes, all the boards are gone. The emergency fire board increases from something to something. That's what else?
And then they begin the process of following the timeline that he put in place on educating the people in emergency services, as well as the community, to where we're going, what this is going to mean.
So what is it that you're going to be talking to them about? What's going to change? That you're educating them that's going to change? I mean, let's be specific.
So if you give me the magic wand, obviously we can't really go any forward. We can't go any further until we have a way to go forward and we know what path that we're going down. I think it would behoove all of us that as a board that is made up of 12 members of people throughout the county, that we solicit the fire departments, fire chiefs and whatnot, and committees would have to be formed. A committee to study personnel and hierarchy and things like that, needs within the fire service. A committee to go do truck assessment and equipment assessment and to see what's really needed. And then you can start taking all of those building blocks and all these committees kind of get back together and build the plan instead of going out and having someone like firm build the plan for you. But then you've got a common goal in place as far as you know that you're eventually going to get to the funding source that is going to allow you to do the plan. If you keep all the fire boards intact, and then this board, we're going to keep meeting opposition. Take those fire boards and basically absorb them into one board so that then we can go out. Autonomy stays intact. The fire district line stays intact. However, eventually, some of those fire district lines probably need to be cleaned up a little bit just to help out for ISO. But everything stays the same. Obviously, we're getting into the few months to where a budget would have to be put in place to get through the next year. That would still be based on current fees and current millage rates that's already in place. But then you know what you can work for or work toward to have a system in place. So we're not looking at cutting out fire. At the end of the day, this is kind of what gets kind of a little bit colluded. We don't have anything to do with personnel. That's you all. That's them and you all, I guess, how that works. We're just making recommendations. So it would be the recommendation of me, and I can only speak for one part of the board right now, is that we take the personnel that's in place and we form committees using those personnel along with our board members. A 5-person committee to go explore future station placements and future needs of station upgrades and things like that for the fire service to come. A 5-person committee made up of fire chiefs around the county to do a equipment and capital replacement assessment of really what's needed throughout the county. A 5-person committee to go explore personnel needs, volunteers. Some areas have more volunteers than others. Why? How can that be shared? And or how can we retain and keep those volunteers? And go out and recruit more volunteers, paid staff, so on and so forth. And then you start building your plan as far as putting it all together to move forward. And then you can build your budget based on that. And then we can get a more accurate tax millage assessment that we can then come to you for funding.
Yeah, one thing, guys, I'd email Ralph sent, I'd ask for structures, homes, whatever, broken down in $50,000 increments. And I was looking at the numbers. Structures, 150 grand and less in Pickens County, 25,306. Structures, 150 grand and greater in Pickens County, 5,706 structures. All right? Basically, 25 meals, pretty much $1 a thousand fee for this, right? That would generate the 150 or 1,000 or less, generate $2,256,856. Just rough estimate based on that dollar thing. All right. Structures greater than 150,000, $1,748,150. Add them up. So you got discrepancy. You got 5,000, almost 6,000 homes contributing, similar to what 25,000 homes be contributing if you do just on property, buildings, houses. That's 4 million. Add them up together, y'all come up with a fund of how many million? 7 million a year or something like that. So where would the other 3 million come from?
Industrial, commercial, vehicles, unincorporated property, or
because another issue that years ago, and you may have been on board then, be able to talk about some of the others, vacant property, fees on vacant property. Remember that?
Oh, we had
that was a firestorm. That was a, you know what kind of storm? And, that's a hot button to address.
The thing that Florence came up and it seemed like they had a pretty good plan. It was pretty detailed. But they did millage, but that wasn't all. They did a 1 cent sales tax to pay for their capital. Right. So that's how they got all those nice fire trucks, which allowed their ISOs to go down.
The population was less too for what
and they have more industry though.
Yeah.
They get probably more tourist dollars.
So it's hard to compare exactly apples to apples.
So when you have more industry, that they pay more.
When was Florence's plan put into place?
7 years ago.
Okay, we're not talking about accomplishing 7 new buildings and 15 new trucks in 7 years, though.
No.
Well, they didn't do it the first 2 years either. They spent 2 years getting the plan.
Okay, we're not talking about 7 new buildings and 15 new trucks in 5 years. We're talking about a true sustainable replacement capital plan is the difference between our plan and Florence. They did a lot quick.
Right now, basically, the capital for the fire service is funded through general obligation bonds. So it's funded through some type of tax or fee or millage or whatever how that you want to put that on there. We're looking at trying to take that and just take that off the table instead of trying to fund future capital needs based on that.
Well, that's funded through fire fees. I mean, that comes out of your fire fees.
Right, but
so you're talking about putting a millage on.
You've got your fire fee or your millage that's for operating, and then you have a capital millage or fire fee as well. I mean, you have actually have. These gentlemen came and talked to us about buying 2 new trucks and tacking on that additional millage. They were still paying a millage for operations, but they were paying an additional millage for capital. We're already doing that.
But that's Dacusville and some of these other.
If they want to go finance something,
they don't do that.
If they want to finance something, if you break down the line item of their fire fee in Dacusville, if they have bonded capital, you're collecting that money for that bond somewhere, and part of it's going to operations, whether you realize it or not. It's happening.
Yeah, it's fire fees.
And something I think we all need to understand, if you're expecting to say, let's do this today, and you expect to see the results or immediate change in the next 5 years, you don't have the vision. The things that we're talking about today will have effects, positive effects, for your children and your children's children. It may not affect you in the next 12 months. It may not affect you in the next 24 months. But in the next foreseeable future, it will have a rippling positive effect throughout your communities. And I think we have to be realistic. We're not coming in waving a magic wand that's going to fix the world tomorrow, but it's a sustainable plan for your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. That should be the goal. That should be the intent. It's not a Florence plan. That was a magical wand plan. That really was. They fixed a lot quick. They built a lot of buildings quick. They bought a lot of trucks quick. That was a magical wand plan. That's not what we're talking about doing here. That's not what the plan has been
But
presented
one thing,
to us.
regardless of what you're saying, their plan was well detailed. There were not a whole lot of questions to it. You knew the plan. I mean,
At the end, correct. Yeah.
You knew it.
Well, we're starting at the beginning here.
Well, we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Well, no, we're not. But that's why we have those 4 things in place.
They laid out a detailed plan before they did anything.
Right. Exactly. But we've got to start somewhere to get to that detailed plan. Right now, they've got no direction.
Let me tell you my concern. Okay? This is what all comes down, what I hear is that the fire districts are concerned that the county is going to come in and take them over, tell them what to do, walk onto their fire scenes, direct them around, boss them around, intimidate them. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, and then what you're going to have is you have a bunch of people that are volunteers that we rely on are going to say, I ain't going to do that.
Right.
I'm going to be pissed. And they're going to walk away. And that is my concern when we don't have a very specific, because right now we're still talking generalities. If we're moving them forward, we're still talking, no offense to what you've done, but one of the things that I feel that holds it together is these volunteers. When you go, and I go to the 6 Mile Christmas dinner,
right,
and all the firemen are there. That's a key part of who that town is.
Right, absolutely.
And their identity.
I agree.
And if when we come up with something that doesn't specifically address protecting that and saying this is what's going to be here and this is how you're going to have control. Okay, now if we get rid of the boards, the first thing that's going to happen is I think people are going to go, the county's taking over. Whether they are or not, perception is what I'm saying.
going to tell you, I'm going to say this, and I've thought it for a long time, and I haven't said it, and I may get stoned before I get to the parking lot tonight. If anybody really believes that they are in control in their fire department, every single chief in this county answers that man right there. Am I wrong? Every single fire chief in this county answers that man right there. Every single fire department in this county, their budget comes through us. None of that changes. So if they really think that if that man wanted to tell that man to go to every fire call in the county and run every fire scene in the county, he has the authority and power to do that today with us changing nothing.
I agree. Because that's what's going on now.
And y'all correct me if I'm wrong on this. The fire boards are in place to plan a budget, to make recommendations to council. Am I right on that? Is there anything else that the fire boards are supposed to do?
According to the orders you guys created, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, the main function of a fire board is to draft an annual budget to present to council. Now, that's their sole purpose.
So the problem that I see is that when you've got 12 different groups of people who are going to fight for their area, right? They're pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling.
From who?
The fire boards.
But the fire boards only deal with theirs. They're not competing against the other fire boards.
No, they're competing. Oh, absolutely, they're competing with the other fire boards when it comes to our budget.
Yeah, but they're going to submit. That's not going to change.
No.
But I'm saying is they put the budget together on what their needs are presented, and we review that budget and say, yeah, you get this and you don't. We don't go say, well, we're going to give you this and then that, because it's still their money in that situation, because the fees come from their area. So it's not like you're taking money from this district and putting it in that district.
That's a great point. So the initial thought process then is that if you've got one group and it's one, well, right now the first year they're still doing their fees within each of their areas. It's just having one group that's talking about it completely. So you're only worrying about the fees from that group. Ultimately, it would be one group that's determining what the money's doing for the whole rural area, right? Based on keeping those 4 parameters in place. We're having a hard time getting started, so that's what but what I'm hearing though is you're given great direction. What I don't want us to do is to get so far in the weeds where we're deciding, what's going to be in Dacusville versus what's going to be in Liberty, or we don't need to decide that, because I'm not smart enough to decide that. What we need to decide is, do we want to offer them enough direction to begin to move forward to educating the firemen, educating the population? This is the direction that we want to go, and then give them specific direction for the Emergency Services Board. What Mr. Willman's saying is, if we are making the determination, then we as a group can decide that versus this group.
In regard to what you're saying, Chairman, I think there needs to be a criteria set up for determining who gets what on material, whatever, like we're talking about.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
To answer your question, Councilman Whitehurst, you are right. There is that fear and that underlying, I guess you could say, condition within the county right now, within the fire chiefs and the ranks of, well, is the county going to come and take over? Speaking on behalf of the Emergency Services Board, we're not involved in that. We have zero to do with that. So that really has got to come from.
And I think that to your point exactly is what we provide is the structure. We're not getting the nuts and bolts of who needs an engine, who doesn't.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the framework. Right. Are we going to have a coordinator over this and this is going to be in charge of these? Are these guys going to report to him? How are we going to have a structure? Are these guys going to have a board? They're not going to have a board. What kind of autonomy are they going to have? Are they going to say, hey, listen, the lines are going to change? What they're going to change to is a kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And just saying, but that framework, we're not talking about how many engines or water pumpers. That's in the weeds. We don't need to go in. We're supposed to look at the structure.
Right.
That's what I've not heard.
And that's what these committees that I was talking about internally, like I said, now it's not totally up to me. I mean, there's a board in place, but, I kind of envision a 3 fire chief and a couple of it, and a couple off the Emergency Services Board to make a 5-person committee that would basically
Can we come up and say, listen, here's what we want. We got these 5 committees we want to form, and we're going to take these people from these particular places. Okay? So then when you come to the public and you're like, we're not disbanding your board, we're kind of taking these guys here and using them here and these guys, and we're kind of making, but that's more of a specific in the overall structure. Rather than we'll form some boards, we're going to get rid of these boards, and we're going to form some boards and come up with some ideas.
I'm not using the right language.
That's what I'm looking at.
I'm agreeing with you on that.
Is that if you say we want a board for this, a board for this, a board for this, a board for this, to come up with a plan, this is how many members we want, this is how we envision from what areas we're going to pull those members, then it gives us something to go to the public with and say, here's what we're doing. Because I feel when you give something over to something without specific direction, like you said in your company, I've seen it in corporate America, we've both been there, it can go crazy haywire because he has one idea of what we say, he hears something else, he's thinking something else, and suddenly,
All 5 of y'all's got different ideas.
and then you're on the hot seat and you're going, hey, that's what, and so.
Well, I kind of like what you're saying. So you've got a meeting set up, right? Coming up Thursday. I mean, how do you feel about what Councilman Whitehurst is saying as far as creating that initial structure of what we're going to put in, what we suggest to put in place to begin this process, knowing that we're still, the process is educating us as to the direction, educating the communities as to what's going to happen. I just want to make sure that we're always saying ISO doesn't change. I know you're saying don't blur the lines, but don't blur the lines. The districts don't change. The people are important to us. They don't change, and our costs stay the same or go down. So we've got an opportunity to do more, and the taxpayer not spend as much.
But we got to be able to have exactly how we're going to do that.
I agree.
In very specifics. You know, because are we going to, and so that the fire chief knows, okay, what's Scott's role going to be in my place?
Right.
When he shows up on my site, what is his role? Am I talking to him, or am I supposed to talk to Gerald? Okay, or am I supposed to talk to Billy? And if Billy shows up, who has authority here? And are they going to be there? These are some of the intricate questions I'm getting from people that, like you said, the fear is out there, whether you want to.
Right. No, the fear is out there. Because I've got.
And I've heard it from multiple places.
Me too. I've had people go, oh, you're going to get rid of all the fire chiefs. No, that's not the plan. Our ISI rating is going to change.
We have to show that in the structure that this is what it is.
Right.
See, and here we show you we're keeping the districts, and here we're keeping this.
That is part of the initial process of building the plan, is to tackle all of these items. I mean, you're basically putting together an organizational structure with everything from A to Z. And you've got to come up with everything. The financing piece and the business piece and so on and so forth. So what does that look like? Well, I can't tell you. I'm not going to build it because you're not paying me to build it. Really and truly, the county's going to have to build this. County fire chiefs, and it would be my position and what we would want to lay out, and also the Emergency Services Board to help build that plan, because ultimately that's the only way you're going to get buy-in. That's the only way. And we take the plan and we come to you and present that plan to you. If there's a part of that plan that a committee comes up with that you all don't like, well, then that's where you all kick it out.
So before we start getting rid of stuff,
I agree. I'm with you. So I'd like to make a recommendation that we give them the authority to start. I want to make sure that we've got representation across the county. That Liberty's represented, that Decasville, 6 Mile, that Pickens, everybody's represented to where he's got enough people on that Emergency Services Board. I mean, how many people are sitting on there now? 7. And where are the representations from?
Pretty much just about throughout the whole county. Just about. Guessing off the top of my head.
One thing I want to stress is known that the key word, Mr. Willman, thank y'all for the work y'all doing. Y'all doing a lot of work, a lot of hours. Is a plan. It's not a done deal.
Absolutely.
It's a plan. It's a working plan, and we're going to look at it.
Yes,
and
sir.
have
I agree.
buy-in or feedback from the taxpayers.
Listen, before we start changing it, we started out and we said that we're going to go out and educate people. We'd even talked about a referendum at first, and we talked about going out and presenting a plan and getting a buy-in. So if we're talking about not doing that now, if you start implementing and then go out and try to get buy-in, so what do you do? What do you do when you go out and the majority of the public don't buy in? Do you go on and do it anyway?
No,
because you've already done the way of the boards.
No. I'm saying I'm agreeing with Councilman Waiters. We don't disband the boards. We try to figure out how we empower the Emergency Services Board to get us a structure, because I like the way you put that, in place so that we can begin the process of educating. Right now, if we put something on a referendum, what are we putting on there? That we want to change something?
Just for the record, I think it's a good thing, but for me, if the public don't buy into it,
then we don't do it.
Okay.
I agree with you on that. I think this going to take some work on our part. We're going to have a series of town hall meetings in each of our areas to let people ask questions, but not until we get what the structure is going to be. What is this going to look like in 1, 2, 5 years? We know we have an idea of what the funding mechanism is going to be. That's also going to be, once the assessment comes in, letting Ralph go back through and go, okay, we've got an extra this many people, we've got an extra this many whatever. But I will go back to the little old lady who sat there and said, I can't afford to pay this fire fee. And I don't know whether she can or not. She's screaming about having to pay $100 and something for a fire fee. And then I go back to the Pinnacle Mountain Fire, where we've got guys out there screaming that you need to come and protect my timber, and they've never paid a dime for firefighters. So we've got to come up with something that's equitable and fair to the people that live here.
I asked one of the fire chiefs early on, I'm not going to call his name, he's well known. I said, what's the perfect plan? He said, there is no perfect plan. There is no, there's nothing, because it's so diverse, the districts are so diverse, there is no perfect plan. So, and I understand that. But if we can get, I think it's going to be, for me, it's a deal breaker. We can't get the majority of people to buy in.
I think if you get the fire chiefs around the county and the 12 emergency services board come up with a good plan, you'll get buy-in. Because he made that comment, if you
Get the
remember
fire
what
chiefs to
Sam
buy in.
Robbins said, he said the fire chiefs make it happen.
So my recommendation is that we empower them to begin the process, that they have 7 people now, that come back with recommendations from us or from you guys.
More people on your board?
Well, the reason for the 12 was to form the committee so that you got enough people to actually.
So right now it's just laying out committees, okay.
Right.
Y'all left the ordinance broad because you can have people.
That's right. Right.
Do we need a second on that?
And actually, the kind of,
I'll
and
second.
kind of the recommendation was 1 from each district and then 6 at large.
Right. 1 from each district,
You're
6
right.
at large. That's my recommendation, is to empower them to begin the process of the structure, to come back to us, not only the 7 people, but to
We need
give our
each
guidance to
fire
help the other.
representative.
I second that.
Okay, so, help me out here.
It's a recommendation.
Recommendation, second. Is there any other discussion on that? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Motion carries on that. Okay,
So we just give him direction.
That's right.
We don't have to vote out this.
So what he'll do is he'll come back with some, y'all develop some people, join those that you think should be on it.
We'll send out a list tomorrow, who's on the board.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what you said.
And we do have another option we haven't discussed. We could come up with $100,000 and pay somebody to come bring us a plan like Florence's where it's all laid out for
Yes.
us. That's an option.
We can pay the $100,000. Right now, we've got a.
I'm not going to recommend that option, but it is an option.
Yeah.
9 years ago, it was 90,000 per floor, so I would have played it a little bit.
Okay,
130.
130,000.
All right.
Could I say something?
Well, we're pretty much done as far as where we're going forward with this, and we got your letter of recommendation. I appreciate it. I mean, if you keep it we're running very late on time. We've got 2 more items.
No, I understand, and really what I was going to ask was I understand that Gerald had shared my notes and things,
Yes.
and originally I was going to talk to you about, but if you've read it, that's fine. But please do read it and think about it, and especially understand that the local fire board should not be disbanded until a uniform funding source is achieved.
Okay.
Because those boards are the connection with the taxpayers who are coming up with the money that's being spent in that district, which is still the way it's going to be until and unless countywide funding is going. So in the meantime, you need that local fire board.
Thank you. On to our next item, the employee engagement survey.
We have Mr. Chairman, y'all added to the agenda an employee engagement survey. The task Lisa to come up with some options, from a free option to a paid plan. We really need some feedback from you guys on what you're looking for in this as well. But Lisa, take off.
Let me guess, it's $100,000.
You get $100,000.
We actually found a free option, I think.
Survey monkey?
She wanted to make sure.
I've done a lot of them.
Yeah, me too.
She wanted to make sure she started exactly where you guys wanted to be when she started this. This should be fairly quick.
It will be very quick if I can get this to you.
I can make it simple. My envisionment and idea when I asked to put it on the agenda was purely to see what the climate was like with the employees in Pickens County, what areas we needed to improve on that helps us retain and recruit new employees. That was all that I was looking for.
It's called $22 an hour for a CDL.
Right.
We've actually we want to hire somebody to help us find CDL drivers.
I know.
I've been talking to everybody I could.
Me too.
We decided today it's going to cost
What about some work to the bus shop after they deliver kids?
I know, we're not talking
and then
about
do that, and then they'll
Lisa, I
Do
think
it.
we know what he wants. If y'all are good with that, we're gonna move forward with this.
Everybody good with that?
You don't want to see my cool PowerPoint?
Yeah, show me your cool
Go ahead.
PowerPoint.
She went to work
on it. We need
to look at it.
You worked on it. I want to see it.
I will make it
Don't-
very quick.
Because
Don't cut her off.
you're engaged.
Lisa, I want to see your
You have an unhappy employee.
You
Don't let her do her PowerPoints. I'll show you engaged.
She's going to give us that first survey.
I've got to bring that
That's the first
computer
negative
tonight.
comments. Work my ass off. What do you look at?
It don't have to be done tomorrow either, so. This is when they got an update, they got to do it sometime or nothing.
I don't remember getting asked for it all day. Because I pretty much use this a lot.
This room, my spring break.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you're not going to be able to see my cool employee engagement survey
You can email it to us.
PowerPoint, but what I want to make sure that you understand when you give me some direction on what you do, one of the things that I follow a lot of human resource newsletters, blogs. One of the things that I read on employee engagement is that engagement is an incredibly difficult thing to measure. It's difficult because it's a feeling. It's a very important feeling, but it's difficult nonetheless. It affects our bottom line. So I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and understanding what the difference is between engagement and motivation.
Well, I only want to make one point on this. I've been a part of a lot of engagement surveys and stuff. The last one that we did was a start, stop, and continue. What do you want us to start doing? What do you want us to stop doing? What do you want us to continue doing?
How long ago was that?
Okay, that was like 60 days. 60 days ago. What do you want us to start doing? That's negative. You're not doing it. What do you want us to stop doing? That's negative. What do you want to stop doing? What do you want us to continue doing? That's pseudo positive. You've got to be careful how you word it,
You do?
so that it is not encouraging. Well, let me think about all the bad things I can think, and just let it be free to where if they want to talk about something bad, they can, but that we're not forcing them into little buckets.
No. And I'll send you this PowerPoint. I'm sorry that it's not working for you. But basically, in here I have some sample questions that we would want to use and why we want to use those. There's really some important things about an engagement survey. In this PowerPoint, you'll see that there's a difference between intrinsic motivation and external motivators. We want to measure both of those. The intrinsic we can't affect as much because those are personal things. Those are things that drive me as an individual, as a person. The externals are those things that I'm rewarded by, those external things that reward me and motivate me. Those are the things that we want to focus on, although we're going to ask questions to get feedback on both of those. So I've given you some sample questions in here that we can look at. But here's one. For intrinsic motivators, things like autonomy, purpose, skills, those are all intrinsic motivators. Questions might be, Pickens County's mission or purpose makes me feel like my job is important. So we tie the employee back to, do you even know what the mission and purpose of Pickens County is? And does that line up with how you feel on the inside? Another one of those questions might be, in the last year I've had opportunities to learn and grow. You know, those are intrinsic because that advances my career path and my skills and those kinds of things.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Certainly.
How long have you been doing this?
21 years.
Have you put these things together before?
Yes.
Okay. I've never put one together.
I've never put one together.
And honestly, if you ask me what I think is a good question, I'm not qualified to answer the question. What I would say is you've got 21 years experience with this. You put together what you think they need to know, because I wouldn't even know how to. You could show me that and say, what do you think of this question? And I wouldn't know how to address it. That's not my expertise.
So
to Chris's point, we just want to make sure that we continue to get the best possible employees that want to come work here. They want to be a part of this. And what can we do? What areas?
You look for what we need to find out what he's trying to ask.
Also, Mark, and how do we
the most important question you can ask is, would you refer a friend to work in Pickens County?
So I don't know
That's going
that.
to tell you the most important information.
And that's right.
But the other three things that we need to focus on, employees need to know it's anonymous, because they're not going to give you truthful answers if not. We need to make it short. If you ask too many questions, they get overwhelmed, they lose interest, and then finally we need to be ready to act. And I guess that's where I'm looking for guidance from you guys. In companies who administered an engagement survey, 27% of the managers never saw the results. And an additional 52% reviewed the results but didn't take any action. So if we ask the questions, we kind of have to be ready to give feedback. It doesn't mean that we're going to change things based on the information, but I think we have to be ready and prepared to give employees feedback.
Okay, so look, I'm just throwing an idea. Okay. Can we do this without costing a lot of money?
Yeah. Survey Monkey free. We're ready to go.
Perfect. We can do the survey. Let her decide what questions to ask. We can look at it, and then we can do one of them things at Liberty and say, here's what we found.
Yeah,
and we
absolutely.
can decide if it's something, and that way we've done our diligence, and because it's just this is your job.
She's awesome.
Just let her go do it.
How long
and then,
do you think it'll take?
Well, we can get it started, in a couple of weeks. But the issue is whether or not we want to spend any money to get the results tracked where we can do metrics and things like that. I've worked from everything from a homegrown Excel spreadsheet up to a
But you know what? You know what's
$20,000
relevant.
system.
We can spend $50,000. You know, you've been doing this 21 years. You've done dozens of these. You take the information, you figure out what's relevant, where you see something that goes, you know what? We need to address that. Or hey, you're doing good over here, and help us to interpret.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, help us interpret.
We're not
At the end of
HR people.
At the end of the day, it's a tool, and if it's not a useful tool, there's no reason to have the tool.
I
That's where
love
we're
the
at.
idea of getting in front of employees and saying, here's what you said,
Yeah.
here's the things we can readily fix, these are things we have goals to fix. in
And
the
then you
future.
can tell us what out of that what we need to say.
We'll move forward.
Done.
All right, cool.
That was cool.
Thank you.
Take a trip to Germany now.
Thank you. Last item is the update on the Twin County partnership with the District Cultural. I wanted to add this because they've reached out and want to come and visit us. If we want to go down this road of talking about how do we create a relationship, all we've done so far is reached out to them and begun the dialogue, learned a lot of things, I think had some success that we can or not speak to. Not yet. We can't really speak to any of those.
No, actually, we're waiting.
Okay.
We're nearing.
But I'm good with whatever you guys want to do. I just wanted to be upfront with everything. If they're interested in coming here and meet with all of us. So what do you guys think?
Well, I stand exactly where I stood the last time we talked about this. There's controversy surrounds it. There's controversy that surrounds a little white church sitting beside the prison. So you're always going to have controversy in life.
That's right.
Everything we've talked about tonight's had some kind of controversy associated with it. I think that there's great benefits to partnerships and learning from others and working with others. I don't necessarily think that all the information that was out there, actually I know, was not fruitful. Some folks just don't like talking to other people, and I understand and accept that too. But I can definitely see great benefits. And I wish we could speak more to projects and such, but unfortunately that's the nature of the business. You can't right now. But I think it could definitely bring benefit to the county, but that's just my ideals.
What do you guys think?
We just want to come here and visit.
Yeah, just to kind of the same thing with us. They would want to sit down with us. We would probably do a dog and pony show on our government and how it works. Where they've got 90 some odd councilmen, we've got 6. Where they've got no unincorporated areas, we've got a lot of unincorporated areas. So it's just a lot of education that way, and then take them to our museum, let them see what Pickens County Museum. It just depends on when they come too, as to
What's going on?
right. The expense to us would be if we took them to dinner or something like that. I mean, it'd be on their dime to come. But I wanted y'all's opinion before I
Have them
did
stay in
anything
a
else.
hotel in the county so we can pick up the A-tax.
They'll have to do that. We'll put them in the cabins.
Well,
that may cover dinner.
I was
going to say.
It's never been with me
wanting to take their form of government or
Oh, no.
even their way of doing things. That's never because I don't.
Right.
On the other hand, some of the things we do I don't like, immigration and stuff like that. But having said that, I think it would be kind of naive if we didn't recognize that South Carolina does a lot of business with Germany. If all the German companies pull out of South Carolina today, we'd be hurt. I think I heard that there was like 180 companies.
Wes, you were at the governor.
He spoke on that, and that's one of the things he talked about. Some of that neighborhood.
So that's good. In that, well, I just can't see a group like that changing core values or anything with people in Pickens County. I know it wouldn't me. Yeah, we can do business with you, but who knows? Pickens County may rub off on them.
How many German businesses are in Pickens County?
In Pickens County?
I know, ERA Connect, is too low.
The first one came to my mind was Air Contact.
I think there's two.
I would think if we're going to invite if the Germans will come over here and we're trying to sell our stuff, the businesses are already here and doing well, ought to be there. Part of that delegation, because they're going to be probably the best people. Because honestly, it comes down to business.
Well, actually, we, the Aquila group is Air Contact, right? And that's one of the things we went to their main headquarters, So
that other German company, whatever it is.
But it would be neat for them to see what the Aquila group has here.
Yeah, absolutely.
If y'all are working on something, I'd like to know what it is.
It's one of the
one of
those projects.
Well, it's
once we
I understand. I think that would be kind of a
It's a big. I mean, it's a.
Keep it over.
Anyway,
I can't say what I want to say. So, are y'all okay with extending I mean, they said they'd like to come. Tell us when you'd like us to come.
We're going to take them to breakfast at Bobby Garen's.
Absolutely.
Leftovers at my house.
Yeah, all right. That'd be fine.
Motion to adjourn if we're ready for that.
I'll second that one.
Motion, second. Any other discussion?
I think we need to keep meeting longer.
All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Motion carries. Thank you.